Niger, ECOWAS, and the African Union. It's possible that the coup leaders who had popular public support only wanted power for themselves, but it was the duty of the African Union to clarify such things through communication and engagement and work with them and the citizens of Niger for a scheduled return to empowering democracy that benefits the citizens. It is also in Africa's best interest and maturity to use the African pronouncement of Niger instead of the French one, Niger. These things and much more will naturally happen when most African leaders come of age, mature, and are mentally free. The strategy of referring to Africans as black when they are in fact various shades of brown and never black is evidence of ongoing Euro mental control over Africans. The strategy of constantly referring to themselves as colonial powers, colonial masters, and slave masters helped to mentally depower and psychologically enslave African leaders and the diaspora. It assists in giving Africans the feeling that they cannot take back their resources and control of African affairs. It's a natural part of the ongoing verbal psychological enslavement that cripple Africans and leave them feeling that they must patiently wait in penury for the imperial euros to give back to Africa its vast wealth and resources. They must live in ignorance and poverty until then, as they also wait for God in the false image of a European man to come from the sky and resolve all the earth's problem. Since their so-called independence, African leaders have not asked themselves, why the Europeans use the words powers and masters to describe themselves, instead of just colonists. Africans should also ask themselves if it is in their best interests to use those words, instead of colonists, or other appropriate and self-respectful words they choose. African leaders do not feel offended when the Euro-racial offenders call Africa the Dark Continent. They know that Europeans would rightly never accept the word sub to describe their geographical location or anything else, but they accept whatever offensive label the Euro-imperial oppressors mentally place upon them. Many strategic words of mental enslavement and insults are lost on the African leaders. Sub-Saharan Africa, sub-region, and many other strategic psychological words and phrases of mental enslavement and oppression used by the Euro-imperial racial strategic aggressors needs to be corrected and put right by the African Union and the Afro world. The so-called Sahel is not a South Saharan African word, it describes the band of countries that serves as the border of the Sahara Desert from the Atlantic to the Red Sea. Due to the ineptitude of African leaders, most African citizens are mentally colonized with words and phrases and are linguistically dumb and disadvantaged on the world stage. It should be so easy for South Saharan Africans to call the so-called Sahel region the Sahara region or the Saharan border states. The Euro-imperial racist scientists strategically moved on to the word Bantu to replace Negro that was defeated, discredited, and discarded by John Lewis at the 1963 March on Washington. This word replacement is equally offensive, as was its intention. Such things are necessary for Euro-strategic war of racial world domination. It will continue until it is finally defeated in a new world of better ethics, values, morality, human rights, equality, and human harmony. Africans will then realize they should not automatically copy European words and phrases. Africans need to think of why they use words like the Gambia Congo, or Niger, instead of Niger. In fact, by using the French pronunciation, instead of an African one, they are also acknowledging French colonized domination of the name of the country. Some of them seem to take the view and assumption that if it is coming from the Imperial Europeans then it is much the same as coming from God. African leaders do not analyze these words and their effects and come up with their own remedies for the benefit of the Afro world as other major racial groups do. Peter Tosh, many Afro teenagers and many Afro intellectuals and linguists all do this for the benefit of their people. But despite having the political power to make the official changes, the African leaders ignore them. The mostly mentally enslaved and as a result incompetent African leaders copy the offensive Euro phrases and pass them on to their citizens and the schoolchildren. The African education system is still not improved and decolonized by most African leaders for the benefit of young African minds. These are all examples of the fact that the Euro-imperial racial offenders also linguistically dominate the African leaders. But the African leaders are the only ones in the Afro world who should have the political power that comes with their supposed independence from Euro-colonization. Their failures mean that the entire Afro world is linguistically mentally suppressed by the imperial Euros. It is a crucial part of the imperial Euro strategy of ongoing world domination and mental enslavement of people of color, especially Afros. African leaders did not resist, protested or worked to change the word Negro. Afro-Americans did it without any political power. Even so, many US gangster rappers were manipulated and rewarded for the overuse of the words nigger, bitches, and such the like to describe fellow Afros. Eventually the NAACP and responsible Afro adults took action to end such self-defeat that undermined the diaspora and the entire Afro world. As usual, the African leaders never take action or get involved in anything to meet the needs and welfare of Afros.